Hey, well, welcome back to our Walking Wednesday. I'm excited to see so many familiar faces. Remember that this is a work that's part conversation, but mostly movement, kind of like a live podcast that you don't have to sit still for. So, over the next 30 minutes, we're going to dig into some of the questions you've submitted ahead of time. And while we talk, I encourage you to get your body moving. This could mean walking around your office, stretching at your desk, or just standing up and getting those steps in, whatever works for you. But please remember that this is interactive, so feel free to drop a thought or a question in the chat at any time. You're also welcome to unmute yourself. And if anything comes to mind later, you can always scan the QR code that's on the screen and ask those questions for next month's episode. Okay, we have a lot to cover, so we're going to go ahead and dive in. Today, we're talking about the theme for the month of June. So June is all about resiliency and building that resiliency to help us with our stress and our burnout levels. And resiliency is more than just a buzzword. It's the ability to withstand, recover from, and adapt to the tough stuff that life throws at us. And like I said, it is the heart of this month's focus. But let's be honest, we all come from different backgrounds, different experiences, and we carry different kinds of challenges. But resiliency is the one thing that helps us all get back up, keep moving forward, and grow through what we go through. And here's the thing. Resiliency isn't some special gift only a few people have. It's a skill, which means it can be strengthened, and it can be practiced. And the one part of resiliency that we're going to focus on today is what it all starts with, which is rest. Okay, so quick visual. Think about your phone, your laptop, your earbuds, whatever it is. They work great, right? Until the battery dips into yellow and then red, and suddenly everything on that device slows down. Apps lag, screens freeze, sound comes in at a much shorter range, and all of a sudden you're very frustrated because nothing is working like it should. And eventually the whole thing just powers off. So what do? You plug it in, you recharge, and you let it rest. And we forget that we are the same way. Our energy, our focus, our ability to handle stress, it all runs on our internal battery. And one of the most powerful ways battery charged is sleep. A solid night of rest does more than just help you feel refreshed. It clears your mind, calms your emotion, and restores your body. It gives you the space to think clearly, respond instead of react, and truly show up as your best self. So, if you're feeling drained, stretched thin, or not quite like yourself lately, pause for a moment, and we're going to spend the next 25-ish minutes talking and looking at your sleep habits. Today's workshop is actually a sneak peek into an upcoming series that we'll be diving into in a couple of months, all about sleep, why it matters, and how to improve it. But before we get there, I want to kick off things by asking yourself a few key questions. So these are retrospective, or introspective, you can just think about them. But these questions come straight from the book Why We Sleep, which is a best-selling book by sleep scientist Dr. Matthew Walker, and it's what our sleep series will be based off of in a couple months. But these questions are really very simple, but they can be incredibly revealing. So let's start. After waking up in the morning, could you fall back asleep at 10 or 11 a.m.? If the answer is yes, that might mean that your body didn't get enough rest overnight. Second question, can you function well without caffeine before? If you rely heavily on coffee or caffeine just to get going, this is a sign that your sleep is not doing its job. Third question, if you didn't set an alarm clock, would you still wake up at your usual time? Needing an alarm or snoozing through it means that your body is trying to catch up on sleep. before? Do you find yourself rereading the same sentence over and over because you can't focus? This often that it's running on low traffic lights were while you were driving. If you do, that can be called micro sleeping, and it's a serious sign that your sleep debt is piling. Now, chances are you were already aware before we asked those questions where you stood in the sleep debt arena. Most of us know when we're sleep deprived, but sometimes we just need a clear reminder that prioritizing sleep isn't optional, it's foundational to our health and our ability to handle stress and burnout. Want a few facts to just drive it home a little bit more? 1 week of poor sleep is enough to disrupt your metabolism and raise your blood sugar levels into the pre-diabetic range. Too little sleep triggers the hormone that makes you feel hungry and suppresses the one that tells you that you're full. Hence why when we are tired, we tend to overeat. There is a direct proven link between how much you sleep and how long you live. So the shorter you sleep on average, the shorter your lifespan. And then one more fact, the CDC has declared that insufficient sleep is a public health epidemic in the United States. So if you're looking for one small change that could boost your energy, your mood, your resiliency, and your long-term health, the best thing to start with is your sleep. So how do we actually do this? How do we set ourselves up for the kind of sleep that restores, recharges, and helps us show up as our best self? Well, for the rest of today, we're going to explore a few simple science-backed tools that you can use to improve your sleep, starting tonight. Let's start with a question you've all wondered at some point. How much sleep do we actually need? For most adults, the magic number falls somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night. That's why we've heard growing up, right, that we need 8 hours of sleep. But in reality, it's a range, 7 to 9. And so it's important that, looks like I'm sharing, there we go. It's important that we're finding ways to get those 7 to 9 hours. It has been shown through many, many research studies that anything under 7 hours consistently has shown to take a serious toll on your health, mood, focus, and even our immune systems. So how do we get those 7 hours? Step one is sunlight. That's right. So getting better sleep starts in the morning and it begins with light. Sunlight is what helps set your circadian rhythm, that natural internal clock that tells your body when it's time to wake up and when it's time to wind down. So in the morning, sunlight triggers a healthy release of cortisol. This is like the one time in the day we actually want our cortisol levels to spike, because with that spike, it helps us feel alert and focused. Later in the day, that same rhythm, that circadian rhythm, helps our body produce melatonin, the hormone that helps us feel sleepy. So here's the practice. The goal is we want to get outside within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up for at least 10 to 15 minutes of that natural light exposure. This counts even if it's cloudy. So even if it's cloudy outside, our body has great internal mechanisms that it's going to be able to recognize the placement of the sun. And so getting outside for 10 to 15 minutes every single morning is a natural way to help our body attune to its natural circadian rhythm. And this is also a great opportunity where we can do some habit stacking, right? So it's a great time where we can move our body. You could take a short walk or do some yoga. If movement early in the morning is not your thing, sit on your porch and practice mindfulness or do a quick journal session outside. It doesn't need to be complicated, but it does need to be consistent every day, 10 to 15 minutes of natural light exposure. Then we want to repeat this practice in the late afternoon or early evening when the sun is lower in the sky. So not when the sun has set, but usually typically it's around that like 6 to 7 o'clock hour, depending on daylight savings. And once again, this just helps our body recognize the placement of the sun and naturally induce our circadian rhythm. Remember, the goal is 10 to 15 minutes outside in that late afternoon or early evening. If you're waking up before sunrise, so you're like, Kirsten, this isn't going to work, that's okay. The goal is to get bright artificial light into your eyes as soon as you can to help signal your brain that the day has begun. And then as soon as that sun starts to rise, we want to get outside. This simple routine, morning and evening light, is one of the most effective and free ways to reset your sleep cycle and make falling asleep at night a whole lot easier. It also works really well for kids if you have kids. Okay, step 2, when it comes to making sure we're getting those 7 to 9 hours of sleep, is recognizing that temperature matters. When it comes to sleep, temperature plays a much bigger role than most people realize, both in helping us wake up and in helping us wind down. So in the morning, we want to do at least a 1 to 3 minute cold shower after waking. This has been shown to stimulate the body's core temperature, actually bringing it up. So it's not going to make you colder. You'll feel cold during the cold shower. But it's going to bring your body temperature up, which is what allows you to kickstart your circulation, boost your energy, and signals your brain that it's time to be awake. Cold exposure in the morning also supports focus and mood by increasing dopamine and norepinephrine levels. And then in the evening, we're going to do the opposite. So in the evening, we want a 1 to 3 minute hot shower or bath before bed, because this can actually help you cool down because it raises your body temperature for that shower. And then when you get out, it brings that core temperature down. This works because the warm water draws blood to the surface of your skin, and the cold air allows your body to experience a slight drop in core temperature. And this is important for that transition into restful sleep mode. To fall asleep and to stay asleep, our body temperature needs to drop by about 1 degree Fahrenheit. That's the natural signal that the body uses to prepare for deep restorative rest. And this is where the environment and the temperature of our environment comes in. The ideal room temperature for sleep is around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit, with 67 being the sweet spot for most people. The cooler room mimics that natural temperature drop your body expects at night and helps support the production of melatonin. So if your room is too warm, your body struggles to cool down and it makes it much harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. So you might toss and turn, wake up frequently, and wake up feeling less refreshed. So just to sum up that tip, we want a cold shower in the morning to energize and wake up, hot shower in the evening to cool the body down, and then sleep in a cool room to support deeper, uninterrupted rest. Little shift in your daily routine can make a huge difference in the quality of your sleep. Okay, third step to getting those 7 to 9 hours is caffeine. So let's talk about what's near and dear to most of our hearts, which is caffeine. I'm not going to pretend we're going to be all sipping herbal teas and living caffeine-free lives. Whether it's coffee, tea, energy drinks, a dirty Dr. Pepper, or your favorite lime Coke, most of us are consuming caffeine and we're consuming it regularly. In fact, studies show that 85% of Americans consume at least 185 milligrams of caffeine every single day. So don't worry, this isn't about quitting. Although if you've read Why We Sleep, you'll know that Dr. Matthew Walker would definitely encourage it. But if giving up caffeine entirely feels like a stretch, there's a couple of things that we know. And the first is we know it's all about timing. So let's start with your first cup of caffeine for the day. We want to try and delay caffeine for at least 90 to 120 minutes after waking. So an hour and a half to 2 hours after waking. We're not going to take any caffeine before that time. This gives your body a chance to naturally wake up on its own, thanks to your built-in morning hormones. especially cortisol, which peaks shortly after you get up. And when we jump to caffeine first thing, that short circuits that process and makes your body rely more on the stimulant rather than its natural energy system. And then let's talk about when you should have that last cup of the day. What most people don't recognize is that caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 7 hours and a quarter life up to 12 hours. So this means even though you stop feeling the buzz of caffeine usually within 2 to 3 hours, caffeine is still circulating in your brain for much, much longer, and it's messing with your sleep quality, especially deep sleep. So the general rule of thumb is if your bedtime is at 10 p.m., then you need to aim to stop all caffeine by 10 a.m. If it's 11 p.m., the cutoff is 11 a.m., and so on. That might feel early, but it gives your body enough time to clear the caffeine so it's not interfering with your ability to fall or stay asleep. If that early in the morning feels impossible to stop your caffeine, then we should for sure not be taking caffeine any later than 2 p.m. So those are the goals here. And we'll dive much more deeper into how caffeine works, how it affects your brain, and why it's such a sneaky sleep saboteur in our series. But for now, just remember, you don't have to quit caffeine to protect your sleep, but you do have to respect the caffeine clock. Okay, step 4, moving your body. Let's talk about one of the most powerful and natural tools for better sleep, and it's exercise. Movement throughout the day plays a major role in setting you up for a solid night of rest. When we exercise, our body releases a cascade of feel-good chemicals like endorphins and dopamine. These help boost your mood, elevate your energy levels, and help regulate your internal systems, including your metabolism and stress response. But that's not all. Regular physical activity has been shown to reduce stress, anxiety, and even symptoms of depression, which are all common culprits that interfere with falling and staying asleep. When your mind is calmer, your body has been put to work, it's much easier to settle into rest mode. So here's what the research says. People who engage in consistent, moderate exercise, right? So moderate means you could have a conversation with the person next to you, but you couldn't sing. So moderate exercise tend to 1, fall asleep faster, 2, engage in deeper, more restorative sleep, and 3, wake up feeling much more refreshed. There is a timing factor when it comes to movement. Exercise also naturally increases your core body temperature, heart rate, and adrenaline, all things that wake the body up and make you more alert. That's great during the day, but not so helpful if it's too close to bedtime. So the general rule of thumb is we want to try to finish any rigorous workouts at least 3 to 4 hours before going to bed. This gives your body time to cool down and shift into a more relaxed state and pick up on those natural sleep cues your body is sending. That said, light movement in the evening, like yoga, stretching, or a walk, can still be beneficial and even soothing before bed. So it's not about avoiding all movement. It's not about avoiding all movement late in the day. It's just about being mindful in the intensity. So, bottom line, exercise helps you sleep, and sleep helps you recover from exercise. So, it's a win win cycle that boosts both your physical and mental well being. Step 5, and the last step we're going to talk about today, is creating a consistent wind down routine. One of the most overlooked keys to a better sleep is what you do in the hour before bed. So, just like how kids and toddlers benefit from a bedtime routine, our brains don't ever grow out of that. We crave predictability on when to know when it's time to shut down. And in today's fast paced, screen filled world, our brain often stays in go mode long after our bodies are ready to rest. And that's where a consistent wind down routine comes in. So here's what it can look like. You're going to have to adjust it for your personal preferences and what works in your life. But step 1, turn off bright lights and screens 60 minutes before bed. That means blue lights from your phones, from your TVs, from computers, all of those. And it's because those lights suppress melatonin, which is the hormone that naturally helps you feel sleepy. 2 is try to do something calming and screen free. Read a book, journal, stretch, meditate, listen to soft music, or take a warm shower. I do always like to add a caveat because we have a lot of librarians that like to join into our workshops. And if reading a book is stimulating to your brain and it makes you want to finish it and not put you to sleep, um, we probably want to avoid that right before bed because we're trying to calm our brain down, not give it something exciting. And then lastly, we want to keep the routine consistent even on the weekend. I think this is the hardest for most people. We want to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, Monday through Sunday. This is what allows us to keep our circadian rhythm stable and in sync. When we're used to waking up at one time, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, we're sleeping in and staying up way later. It throws off our circadian rhythm and makes it really hard for our body to know what to do. So these routines, think of it like a signal to your brain. Hey, the day is done. It's safe. You can relax now. Over time, the ritual becomes a powerful sleep cue. Think Pavlov's dogs that helps us fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. So once again, the bottom line here is a calming, consistent pre-bed routine tells your body it's time to rest, making your transition to sleep smoother, easier, and deeper. Just a reminder, this workshop was just a sneak peek about what any questions. So the first lesson, melatonin, and all are going to be answered. Other questions I can. But each of these 5 sleep strategies we've explored, sunlight, temperature, caffeine timing, movement, and the wind down routine, these are more than just tips for better rest. They're core habits that directly fuel our ability to be resilient. Remember that resiliency is our ability to bounce back, adapt, and show up, especially when life gets hard. And quality of sleep is the foundation that makes that possible. So TLDR, I tuned out Kirsten. I didn't catch all that. That's okay. Go through those 5 steps really quickly one more time. 1, sunlight exposure helps set our internal clock, improving energy through the day and rest at night. When your sleep cycle is aligned, you think more clearly, regulate emotions better, and handle challenges with a sharper mindset. 2, managing through cool sleeping environments and strategic showers, we're able to help our body shift into restful states more easily. When your body gets the rest it needs, your stress response is lower and your recovery is stronger. 3, caffeine timing respects your natural rhythms. When we avoid that late afternoon cup, your brain up for the real rest, not artificial stimulation. The result is more emotional stability, better focus, and fewer burnout symptoms. 4, movement and exercise reduces anxiety, boosts mood, and help regulate the hormone that supports both sleep and stress resilience, and also supports a strong body, which helps support a strong, flexible mind. And step 5, a calming wind down routine builds consistency and signals safety to your nervous system that allows for a consistent emotional landing pad, which strengthens your ability to stay calm and grounded even when life is unpredictable. Resiliency doesn't just come from powering through tough moments. It comes from proactively building a life that helps you recover, recharge, and rise again. And sleep, that's our starting line. When you sleep well, you cope better, you connect better, and you come back stronger. So if you're looking for one habit that impacts your mind, body, and spirit all at once, start with sleep. So that's all I have today. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop a question in the chat. As always, the QR code that's on the screen, that's where you can submit your questions, and those are the questions I go off to help build our workshops. But like I said, that's what I have for you today. Thanks for joining me.